staff measure that goal in their progress. And there are times districts do not meet expectations for that when they have their goals. So we have been satisfactory for those. It's AR. What does it mean?
I can't remember.
Alternative rating.
Yeah, alternative rating is satisfactory. ARS.
And what I'll quickly add, prior to receiving satisfactory, all you could get at Parkview or those schools was a meets, and we've always had that. So Parkview has always done exactly what they need to be doing to receive that.
So what we do see is a high school that has been meets expectations. And if you look at the report cards for the state of Wisconsin and high schools, they get meets. And if you're going to see any in the state that say meets few, you're going to see it at a high school level. They have it. It's all kids take the ACT now. We got rolled into a super group. This is what happened. That's our lived story. So we're aware of that. We've made plenty of changes, as I mentioned. Carrie's going to speak to it in a little bit here. But one of the things is that we're not happy with it. Okay, we're disappointed in the scores. I'm not going to come here today and say, yeah, we're going to celebrate that. But we've already talked to you, and we are telling our story. We're about a growth mindset, and we're about a continuous improvement model. And it really needs to get down to our students and our families and our staff and everybody. It not just be something that we talk about in this room. It needs to be a part of our culture. So we shared at the last board meeting, look at evidence of this alive in our building. And that's what's very important. So we feel great about the school year, the start of the school year. The feedback's been very positive. Feedback from staff has been positive. You know, you even hear people like revive, rebuild, reignite. You know, we're using words like that because we really feel like, hey, we have our accent on the right syllable, so it's on the right syllable. We know what we need to work on. We're looking at our data, and we do have a growth mindset, and we're trying to nurture that environment in our kids. We believe there'll be a big ROI for all of them. So one of the things is we will own is we do not feel that our practices, as far as our curriculum, have been aligned tightly enough with a test like this. So we have the curriculum. We are now working on horizontal and vertical alignment. And again, Carrie's going to speak to that. So we historically have, in the last couple of years, received expectations. We're now meets. That's good. I mean, it's good. But we want it to be exceeds expectations. So we have our eye on the target. We want to see improvement there. So I just think that that's really important. But it is important to see where we've been. We don't want to have that yellow exist on a report card again. So as far as the overall strength score for the school district, you can look at this piece here, this front overall, and you can see that our ELA scores are above state average. Even the ELA score in closing the gap, it's worth double the points. So we're right in alignment with where we should be for closing the gaps when it comes to ELA. But you can see that we missed the target on the growth piece. So that we're still digging into. So the growth is like subgroups in the state of Wisconsin. It's not our kids don't grow. It's these particular groups. If we look at other
We're talking
groups.
economically disadvantaged.
Correct.
Is where our issue
right.
is.
Okay. Well, we're going to dig in. I'm not going to say that exactly right now. I'm going to say it is those subgroups: EL, special education, socioeconomic, and we still need to keep digging into it. This is really still relatively live data to us. You know, it's pretty new.
Well,
So
I appreciate feedback and your mindset.
Can I add real quick, Scott? Because we know those have the weight they do,
Absolutely.
you can certainly help your score by knocking achievement out of the park as well. Okay, so it's not only about those subgroups, and I don't think Scott implied that, but it's that two-pronged. But unless your achievement is really into that 90 point out of 100 range, you really are impacted by those growth and those gaps. So if you increase both, you're going to receive the benefits.
Okay. So we did overall see a decline in the growth score in this round of reporting compared to prior reports too. So what we didn't do is do a comparison of district growth. It was not a 49, it was higher. You know, so that's really where it came. The biggest impact of this report card was in that area. We did see a drop in math achievement, but it wasn't as significant as the growth. The growth is really where those subgroups got compared. So that's where we have to dig in and try to be more proactive to figure out, like, okay, let's make sure that this story doesn't happen again. However, here's the thing. We've been aware of this math trend. We implemented a new math program in our primary school. We've been working with outside consultants to review our math program, specifically in instruction and assessment strategies. And we've targeted professional development for math at the high school and middle school. And we believe that we are going to start to move the needle here. So we are experiencing changes in our student demographics. And I just had a presentation last week, and it's about between 15 to 16 years, they're predicting that the Hispanic population will be the majority in the United States of America. It's not something that's 50 years from now. You know, it's a very rapid pace, and it's just based upon the fact that who's having kids? You know, so people in the room, anybody, are you guys having kids? You know, so many of us are done, you know. So the younger population is coming, who's having kids, and Hispanic families are having more students, more children per household, is one of the things. So it's very important for us to work on equity. It's very important for us to continue to look at the data at a deeper level. And that standard-based alignment of our assessment practices and that targeted feedback, that live feedback to kids, saying, okay, here's where you need to grow. Let's set up goals. It's not something that just happens once a year, this test. This is something that we prepare for throughout the school year. It's just naturally embedded to our work. So, well, we have our mission is empowering learning, fostering innovation, and transforming the learning experience. That's gonna stay the same. And really with that, we were talking about we need to do that for our students in order to ensure that they master the priority learning targets and that we embrace a growth mindset. So with us, as we empower learning, we need to empower our students so that they know exactly what these learning targets are and they can speak to it themselves. It's not just something that's on the wall or on a test. It's something that they can say, here's what I know, here's where I need to grow, and I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get it. And if kids already have it, well then this is how much further I'm going to go because I know that I have it. So our core priorities were shared last week, and I've already spoken to them. So they are growth mindset, alignment of learning targets. And with that work too, by the way, when we talk about alignment, it is these teams. So sometimes we have 4 teachers per grade level. It's making sure they're all on the same page. And then the work that they do aligns with what's happening with the grade below them and the grade above them. And just this constant dialogue back and forth. And we are doing a great job, and I've heard Becky speak to that, I've heard some other individuals speak to it tonight even. So, but that's really important, that as we go down our strategic planning process this winter and spring, that we're very focused on improvement, on improvement, on improvement, and making sure that we are making progress on the goal of empowering learning, fostering innovation, and transforming learning experience. You're still going to hear things like back to basics coming up here too, you know, because we believe that's what's going to make a difference for us. So the last part for me is that this report card, it's just one data point for us. It's on one day. We have way more data that we use on a regular basis in our schools. However, it matters. So, and we've talked about it for sure, and we want to see improvement. So, but for us, in addition to these district assessments, it really that regular student feedback that they get on a daily basis, and looking at our data and doing some more data mining, that's what's going to make a difference for the school district. So, just looking at the report card, talking about it, that's not going to impact anything. It's now that we have this information, what are we going to do with it? So really, that leads to Carrie. And just naturally, our notes, I spoke to some of it, but you get to really bring it home.
You betcha. So my part comes in basically in our action plan. So the specifics of how we're executing our plan can be seen at all the levels, both across the district and within the individual buildings. But I'm going to speak first to district-wide. So we have a very focused commitment to vertically aligning our priority learning targets this school year.
Where were you this afternoon when you couldn't meet with me?
Where was I?
Yeah, and this afternoon, didn't you have a priority meeting?
I did. We were working on priority target alignment. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Definitely. And so yes, we are working on, getting our literacy and numeracy priorities aligned, and we are getting the documents together so we can create the report card, and we're in the process of doing that. We are dedicating increased time for staff to horizontally align our universal instruction practices in numeracy and literacy. while we work with staff and students to create growth-oriented classrooms. So we, again, when we look at our priorities, we look at growth mindset, we look at priority targets, we look at the universal instruction. This is kind of where we're at, what we're doing. We have a major focus on getting back to basics, and digging in for best practice in math and literacy. Having those discussions about what is best practice, what are we doing currently in our classroom, what's working, what can we do to grow, to do things better. And so then, for kindergarten through 8th grade, we're focusing our professional development on the components of a reading workshop model and vertically aligning our learning targets. And so we've done a lot of professional development on the units of study and what components that we feel that every classroom should have, so that when you walk into a classroom, we've got some similarities and some things going on with the workshop model. We're adopting a new phonics program, which actually is aligned with the reading and writing programs that we're using already. And this phonics program is being adopted at kindergarten and 1st grade that promises to support continued achievement growth and the district efforts to close that literacy achievement gap. And so looking at the data, we were seeing our numbers are saying that we need some work in phonics. And so how are we going to improve that? And so we've been recognizing this, and like Scott said, before even our numbers were coming out, we pretty much could have said, we know where we need to improve and we know what we're looking for.
I want to comment on one thing.
Mhm.
So, and one of the reasons why we know that is because of our iReady data.
Right.
So iReady is a local data resource. So we really need our students to understand that that's a growth test. So when we see that, we use that to set goals with them.
Mm-hmm.
We use that to figure out how our curriculum's working, how our instruction's working. So we really need all kids to take the iReady exam so that we get a good understanding of exactly where we're at.
Right.
So it's a local assessment piece, it's not a statewide piece, it's in our own little data warehouse, but it's
Right.
for us. So we ideally would be using those assessments to create, in a perfect world, you
Mhm.
can create custom plans for kids based on how they do it.
Correct,
You know?
correct. And we're using them during our What I Need time. And so we look at the numbers and we look at the students and where they're performing, and we say, okay, well, this group needs this, and so we're going to get them that. And so it's very important to have those, it's called the diagnostic. And what it really does is it really helps us to dig down deeper into what their students need, and if there's any gaps that we need to
And
close.
it's strongly aligned with the forward exam.
Oh, yes,
Which is
definitely.
a different resource. So if you go back a few years ago, we didn't have this. This is relatively new to us.
So
Mhm.
is this programs that we're doing, are we getting certain programs that other school districts has done? Do we have any
Oh, yeah.
quantitative /
So
qualitative data that
if
supports
you look
this?
at the high flyers in literacy in the state of Wisconsin, they're reading and writing workshops, school districts.
Okay,
Right, you betcha.
all right, that's all.
Mhm.
I think the key part would be is, seriously, from what I just looked at, it's this growth mentality that's so important. And kids knowing what their data is, they know where they're at and they know what they need to do in order to grow. That's what I think is a missing piece. We have it here, but it hasn't been systemic. That's the part I think it needs to be a systemic part of our culture. We need our families to join us in that journey to say, hey, I know that that's where my child performed, but we have an expectation they're gonna grow. Can you show me how they've grown this last school year? Because as a dad, me personally, with one of my kids is doing very well in school, she lived in intervention almost her whole academic career from 2nd grade through 6th grade. And it's those interventionists that helped move her. And it was always about the growth. It was never about, oh my gosh, my daughter is a year and a half behind grade level. That never came up, as long as I knew that everybody was working with her to help her grow. You know, and we absolutely do a great job of that. I mean, I know we do,
Mhm.
but it's just, let's get the families on board with us. Let's get that part of our regular dialogue all the time, especially when you talk about these subgroups we're talking about here. Gotta get them engaged.
And I do think we had that conversation about talking about what our culture of assessment is, and just bringing everybody into that whole culture of assessment, and that we do a lot of assessing, but there are purposes for it.
So, and is it test overload? And
Right.
how do people feel about it?
Mhm. And how are our students responding is the other thing. So Parkview has explored and implemented a new math program in grades K1,
All of K and 2 of our first grade classrooms.
Okay. okay, and in 2 grade levels with plans to expand this to second grade, I believe, right? And so that's another way that we are looking at increasing, we're looking at our math program. We're trying to figure out what, you know, did you have a question? Oh, I thought you were gonna say something.
No.
Looking at our math program and saying, okay, how can we improve things? And then in addition, we're working with outside consultants to review our grade 3, 8 math program with targeted mathematics professional development. We had a lot of, Shelley Dawn was somebody who came in this summer and worked with our teachers. And we just had, earlier you talked about Stacy Walworth and Karen Halsma. So we're bringing in math people and we're saying, how can we boost our teachers so that we can help them, you know, get this, this math going. All right, so off to the high school. At Mayville High School, we are working towards redefining college and career readiness. Lee spoke to a little bit about that, I think. And then they believe that our portrait of a Mayville graduate will include many opportunities above and beyond the ACT to show college and career readiness. Did you speak at all about the portrait?
Just a little bit.
We've been mentioned off and on, and really there's something, and if you have a chance to hop online, it's called Redefining Readiness. And there's some things that, and Scott spent a little more time than I have, I think, so he can chime in here too. But the Redefining Readiness is taking a really large picture of what we want high school graduates to be. And it's more than a GPA, it's more than an ACT score. A lot of it goes into it, but it really is the predictor of what we want kids to be when they leave.
Well, in the United States of America, the Wisconsin is actually one of the few states that have adopted the ACT for their actual state assessment. So what's been happening on a national level, and it is someone who once was an administrator in a Wisconsin school, now is a superintendent down in the Illinois area, and is really driving to say, okay, ready for the world is way beyond the test. There's so much that goes into that. So one of the things I heard tonight was you mentioned about some additional AP classes at the high school. That's great to offer it. We need kids to be in it too. So offering them is great. Now they're taking the class, and then another measurement is what did they score on it? A 3 or better on the test. So the amount of kids taking rigorous courses, it matters. Colleges are looking at the actual scope and sequence of the courses that our kids take. So they're not just looking at the ACT. As far as redefining ready, one of the big players in redefining ready are universities. And they're saying, okay, that's one data point, but you can't put your eggs all in that basket. There's way more to it. So when we talk about the high school, and we talk about the end result, it is that profile. What do we want our kids to know and be able to do? And what experiences do we want them to have along the way? So youth apprenticeships, for example. We need to see more kids in youth apprenticeships. We have the opportunities, but they're not necessarily pursuing them. So why? Why is that? Because we know the strongest school to work initiative that's out there is a youth apprenticeship. It's been around a long time. So if we don't have a lot of participation, what is it? And what community partnerships do we need to have in order to see that? Volunteerism, I would say what I've seen in Mayville, we have phenomenal amount of volunteerism happening at Mayville School District and the high school. With the Interact group that we have, they did a ton of stuff just this last year. So all of that matters. So when we talk about the performance of the Mayville High School students, we do need to recognize that it's way more than just the test.
Right. And we also spoke to the fact that the graduate ACT score is consistently at or above the state average with a composite score of 20.2 for the class of 2018. So at the high school, they raised the rigor of the math program to guarantee that all freshman students are exposed to Algebra 1 with additional targeted instruction based upon students' skill levels. So that's one of the things.
That's a lot of jargon that I wrote there.
It is a lot of jargon. Explain what you wrote.
What it means is we don't have pre-algebra at the high school. So if we were looking at the scope and sequence, if they came in, they took pre-algebra, then they would take algebra and geometry. They would never take algebra 2. So they're missing the content, the rigor that we need for them to be successful. They're taking their 3 years of math, but it's just not enough. So we now do have, everybody comes into algebra, but right now, we've plenty of kids who need extra support. That's not enough for them. So we changed that this year. We think overall it's been a good model for us, and that we're making progress. So that's new, though, this year. So we'll do some studies of our data to see how our students are doing. But in the meantime, we're definitely trying to align our scope and sequence more with the ACT.
The high school is also increasing alignment of their student learning targets, just like K-8 has been doing, and assessments with the ACT, and began the implementation of complex nonfiction text across all content areas. And basically that's the RAD program. RAD started in the middle school and we grew it, and it's been great stuff. Brought the high school in, and it's taken off.
Just a quick anecdote, Scott, I think, called one of us the other day. Mr. Cooney was gone on Friday, and we're also pouring cement in the current band room, so they did not have band on Friday. And what JD did was took an ACT writing prompt out of one of the resources that we use for non-fiction text, and basically the prompt was something about funding for fine arts or something, where the kids had to write a position essay, and that's band class. So I think this will take time, but Bob started it last year with the group, and they really caught on. And we gotta read and write across all areas, just not English and social studies.
Right.
The district I went and viewed last week, that's been working with the student group for their continuous improvement, it's been a 10-year journey. It doesn't happen in a day. So for us, we really started some of this work last year with the SAIL group. That was the first time we've been more intentional with our planning, our 100-day planning cycle, and we grew that group this year, and now that's just a natural for us to get into that next round. One of the things I will say, with that, implementing the use of complex nonfiction text across all content areas, a great example would be now we're not just doing that, but we're actually assessing that in every class, and we're reporting up the data of how our students are doing on these literacy standards. So we know what the literacy standards are. You can't just have that be taught in English. In the English classes, all teachers can help to address these actual learning targets for literacy. So that's what's coming for us in Mayville.
And then we are stressing the importance of creating a growth mindset. The high school, the entire district, it's our #1 priority, is the growth mindset culture when it comes to both achievement and the redefinition of what college and career ready is for our graduates. So growth mindset is in so many different things that we do, just always thinking that we're not there yet, but we're gonna get there. So that's the part, and like Scott and Lee said, we've been doing this work since the summer. We pretty much know where we are and what we're doing well and what we need to improve, and so we have a good plan in place, and we're just going to continue to look at data and continue to implement best practice.
We did not predict the formation of a supergroup at the high school.
No, we did not.
Just so you know, that was a surprise to me as a superintendent. So that we want to make sure that we're in front of, and that we can know how those scores are calculated at a deeper level. So we're doing a retreat and digging in more to make sure we're prepared for any, as best as possible, to predict if these supergroups will be occurring. That was the one thing that I would say was the aha. Was like, where did that come from?
Well, and the other thing too is I think all of you probably got an email from me when I shared an EL document, which is English learner document. I didn't realize you were all going to get it. I don't know if you just, read it or whatever. I didn't realize all staff met the school board as well. But I am also the Title III coordinator, and so I am working on looking at the very new DPI handbook for ELs and putting together what we need to do to go forward and just getting things in place so that we can look at.
It's an increasing population for us.
Yes.
EL is students that actually their home language is not English. so their first language is not there. So then, some of the needs are minimal, they do
Right.
great, they're universal,
Right.
just being in class, they're fine.
Mhm.
While others definitely need some additional support.
Yep.
And you're seeing more of that, so it's very important for us to address that, so.
Have the, and it could be anything, I'm kind of singling this out, of the Latino population.